Why do we got to take off days? The Rangers are hot. Let's keep playing. Actually, that's easy for me to say. All I'm really doing is watching and working a little bit. But, man, it's been fun watching them. They hit the road now. Can it continue out there? We talk about it next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Oh, red hot indeed. The Rangers fresh off a sweep of the best team in baseball as they swept the Milwaukee Brewers and completed a 5-1 homestand. They're headed out on the road now, and they are right back in the thick of things in the playoff race. Hi there, and welcome into the DLLS Sports Studios. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. Me, John Radigan. We got Jeff Wilson, both of us in studio today. The Queen, Kat, is here pulling double duty today, having already done the Cowboys show and being called out for her fandom. She's a Giants fan, apparently. We're trying. Anyway, we are, like, surprised, happy, downright giddy that it's going like this, Jeff, especially when you consider how it was going as recently as August 22nd when they returned from Toronto and Kansas City.
Yeah, it's shocking that this team, with the personnel that it has done what it's doing. And you know, I don't mean any disrespect to, you know, Michael Hellman and Cody Freeman,
sure,
Alejandro Osuna, but the guys they're replacing are all stars.
Yep.
And the production level was supposed to drop off significantly, even with the seasons that some of those guys were having. And you know, some other guys have picked up the ball and run with it. These guys have done their part. They've infused energy, which was missing, and you know, that's still the big question. Why was this energy missing?
Sure.
But the pitching's remained the constant, even with the loss of Eovaldi. You know, you've thrown in Jake Latz. He's allowed 3 runs and 3 starts.
Jeez.
You know, this guy is it's just kind of special and remarkable. You hope they can finish the story. You know, the storybook ending with a bunch of guys who nobody expected to be on this roster in September, in a playoff race, and here they are. And really, you know, I keep asking. And I mentioned this yesterday. I keep asking guys, how do you sustain this? They are sustaining it.
Yeah,
it's 14-4.
Yeah,
it's not like it's 5-1. Now maybe early
sure,
on you could say, oh boy,
sure,
can they keep this up?
Sure.
But now, no. This is real. They can compete. They're going to contend. Yes, they have a tough schedule coming up here these next 6 games, but they just had 6 really tough games.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm as speechless about it as you are, John. I have no answers.
No,
you just sit back and enjoy what's happening.
And frankly, when you asked Boach yesterday pregame, how do you sustain this? He said, just keep playing, which is why I'm sad there's no game today, right? Like, just keep playing. But the reality is they need off days. They need time down. But, yeah, that's the beauty of it is, like, there's, you know, Boach recognizes it. So do they. There's no real magic formula. When you get on a heater like this, man, you just keep playing. You just keep going. And you keep trying to do the same things you've been doing. And, it, you know, again, it's easy to say that. And then you run into a team like the Brewers. And frankly, the Brewers didn't, you know, it's not like they can't. First of all, it was going to be a whole math equation, but they could have clinched pretty much everything in the National League with 1 win and a few other teams' losses and that type of thing.
Yeah, right.
But any given day. They just needed one win and a few other. They could not get one win here.
Right.
So they never got any closer to the thing.
Yeah, that's the Stephen Hawkins with the Associated Press. He was preparing for the possibility of a Brewers clinch scenario. In that case, maybe there would have been some champagne sprayed and reporters getting wet and all that stuff, or maybe they just would have saved it for the Central. But in any event, it was something that he was prepared to cover, and the Rangers took care of that for him. That was awful generous of them. Yep. They're still comfortably ahead in the Central, 5.5 games. Even if the bottom were to fall out, they'd still be a wild card team.
Sure,
but they're a good team. You can look at their lineup and say, well, who are these guys? But then you look at their numbers and you're like, I don't know who they are, but they're really good. And their bullpen. The Rangers avoided the good part of their bullpen, or the leverage arms, which is it's been so good. They were able to avoid that. They didn't face necessarily all their great starters, but Freddie Peralta, who pitched yesterday, is a 16-game winner and a Cy Young favorite, and they took care of him. They made him work 113 pitches in 5 innings.
Yeah, and he hadn't given up a run in
like 5 starts, 30 innings.
I thought it was 5 starts. Good gosh. Yeah, so, he'd been pitching really well, and the Rangers worked him, first of all, which is so important. And then secondly, they scored runs on him and did it sometimes in creative ways. They freaked him out into a balk. I mean, take him any way you can get him at that point. To Jeff's point about how do you sustain this, I really don't even think this season we ever asked that question. Maybe we did there, and right after Booney got here and the Rangers reeled off 6 in a row, and you wondered how can they sustain this, and they'd played really well and took 2 out of 3 in Detroit, who was already pretty good at that point. But I don't remember asking, can they sustain this until right after the All-Star break. Yeah. And I remember standing in the dugout before Game 1 against Detroit, first game of the second half of the season, and Matt Hicks said, after that really good finish to the road trip where they took 2 out of 3 from Houston in Houston, he's like, after that really good finish, man, they got to go at least 6-3 on this 9-game homestand. And I'm thinking, that's a tall task. They went 8-1. And that's when we started thinking, can they sustain this? And basically, they proved on the very next homestand they couldn't. They've been great at home in the second half. And as we look at that, you see in that very next homestand, Jeff, they took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, but then got swept by the Phillies and lost almost inexplicably 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and the Diamondback series was the one that, in my mind, was they were going to look back and be like, that's the series where it all fell apart.
Yep.
Or that really cost us the worst, because they should have won. Well, all right, they could have won the last 2 games. They came back to win the first game. Gave up a run in the 9th in the second game. Gave up 4 runs in the 9th in the third game.
Yeah, that was the one.
And then they had to go out on the road. It was just a rough one.
Yeah, it was a rough stretch because then they went. That's when they went to Toronto and Kansas City,
and that wasn't any good.
And that was awful.
That was 2-5.
2-5. Yeah, no, 2-5. Yeah, because it was a 4-gamer. Yeah, in Kansas City. So they were 2-5 on that series, and then, as you saw on the graphic, they came home and went 5-1. 5-1 against the Guardians and Angels. And then they went back out on the road, were 4-2, and then 5-1, of course, in this last homestand. So, obviously the road is a separate deal. Their most recent road trip, one of the few winning road trips they've had. But, this home momentum, Jeff, this home ability has just been something to marvel at, especially in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and like we said yesterday, that's half the equation. The other half is the road success. Yep. And, the 4-2 road trip, granted against lesser competition, was important, and you after winning the first 4, you're hoping you can at least split the last 2. But let's not be greedy.
Yeah.
And then on this one, the Mets, who are going to who are very good in New York at Citi Field, and they're going to throw 3 young guys who everybody's excited about. Okay, whatever happens in that series happens. It's the Astros series.
Yep.
Rangers have to win that series. They don't have to sweep it, but they got to win 2 out of 3, and that starts Monday through Wednesday. But what's ahead of them right now is a Mets team that's lost 5 in a row.
Yep. Not scoring any runs.
They are coming home, so they have that going for them, and then they have the young starters. But you kind of look at it, and it's like, well, maybe this Mets team is kind of ripe for something. They're now 10 games behind the Phillies, so they're not winning the East.
Nope.
That one is over, and then they kind of got to worry about the wild card stains. Like the Giants are playing great all of a sudden,
sure.
And the Reds are still there, so they kind of have a fight on their hands. It's only 2 games, the Reds and the Giants, so it's just kind of interesting where they're at.
It is, and it'll be really interesting on Friday night as Jacob deGrom returns there for the first time. And we had a chance to talk to him yesterday. And, of course, that's where he started his big league career. And he's really excited about going back there for a number of reasons. First of all, the fans loved him there. Second of all, it's Old Timers Weekend. And, and this speaks to the longevity that guys have in this game. But he said, there's going to be a few guys on the Old Timers team that I came up with.
Right.
And here's Jacob still pitching and at a very high level. So pretty cool. And he wants to downplay it a little bit,
right,
as he does everything. He wants to kind of keep that even keel. But you can tell, and he even admitted, there'll be a few extra butterflies in there for that game, that start on Friday.
Yeah, and I think he's also expecting a few extra boos.
I hope he is. Yeah,
I anticipate that there will be boos, and that's that's par for the course there. But it is a big deal going back to the place where you won
no
2
question.
Cy Youngs, became a star. Kind of left him at a time when they were trying to spend a little money, and really, I don't remember the Mets even making him an offer.
I know. I don't understand that, because they went and got 2 guys that were older than he was at the time.
But in any event, he's with the Rangers. They won the World Series. He wasn't as big a part of it as he'd like to be. He's making his 28th start, which is stunning. He might be showing some signs of fatigue because when he misses, it's a mistake pitch that's getting hit out of the ballpark. But he might also have a little extra juice for this one.
Sure.
The old Mike Napoli term, sports hate.
Yep.
You love the guys, but you hate the team. Now, Mike Napoli was traded, whereas deGrom left on his own free will. Sure. But it seemed like it wasn't. It seemed maybe a little rocky.
It did, and it seemed like as much as and we know the fans loved him there. He acknowledges that he was beloved there, but it seems like they were mad at him, right? As you sometimes are when somebody leaves via free agency. It's one thing if the team trades him, like, what can he do? But if you leave via free agency, like, well, what's wrong with us? Why are you leaving us? So, again, I don't know that they were, poking pins in a Jacob deGrom, bobblehead doll or whatever. But I think they were a little sports butthurt on that deal. So, that's going to happen, and it'll be fun to see. First of all, I don't think there's any doubt they're going to boo him lustily. They're New Yorkers, right? I mean, that's just how they roll. But I think also the good ones, and he's one of the best, tune that out and actually feed off of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. So we've got a very special treat coming up in the next couple of segments of the show, as the former Rangers assistant general manager, who went on to become the general manager of the Minnesota Twins, Thad Levine, is going to join us. And you can chime in the chat if you'd like with questions for Thad. But he was a huge part of building all those things that John Daniels built over the years, the 10 and 11 teams, and really even the 15 and 16 teams. Thad was still here and an integral part of those teams. And actually, Thad has his fingerprints on this team, and we'll talk about why with him a little bit later on. But that's all coming up next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. And it is that time of year. Boach said it yesterday, that this time of year in baseball is the best. And we've all known that. September baseball, man, there is nothing like it. And Game Time is the place for you to go to get tickets to your favorite game. Hey, you know, you can save at Game Time if you use their zone deals. And those are, you know, you pick a section and they pick the seats. You save a little money if you do that. But you'll know your total up front because there are priority fees included in these tickets. No surprises at checkouts. We've mentioned many times before, you get that panoramic seat view from the app before you buy your ticket. And Game Time does guarantee the lowest price of any of the ticket apps in the secondary market. They will refund 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of ticket buying and create an account and redeem with the code DLLS and get $20 off your first purchase at Game Time.
John, go ahead and take this one too, because I'm communicating with
our friend.
Yes, I am.
Very good. So Big Brothers and Big Sisters is our partner, and we're thrilled. We're so thrilled to have them be in partnership with us, and we're also thrilled about what's happening this Saturday, the 13th, from 2 to 6 p.m. at the Casa de Monte Cristo Lounge. The Big Brothers and Big Sisters are there. We are there, and you are there to have a stogie, have a drink, and talk about a great organization that helps so many kids who need help. Boys and girls need Big Brothers and Big Sisters. We encourage you to consider becoming one of those, and we also encourage you to go to that event and find out even more about our partner, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. All right, so what is the latest from our buddy Thad
We're working
Levine?
with it. We're working on it.
Still working on Thad. Beautiful. Well, that's great. You got to remember he was, really a part of a very young troika of guys who were sort of at or near the top of that Rangers leadership group. And when we had John Daniels on earlier in the week, we were kidding him incessantly about how young he was when he took the job. Well, John was only 28 years old when he got the job as the general manager of the Rangers, and it followed a path of a bunch of other guys. And he surrounded himself with guys who were like him, smart, funny, witty, good looking. I'm assuming we have Thad on because I'm lying.
Here we go.
No, yeah, I was going to say, I hope we got Thad here because I'm really not blowing smoke, Thad.
Thad Levine.
Smart, young, good looking. Look at him.
Wait, were you guys talking about me? Do go on. I don't want to interrupt here.
Thad Levine, our buddy, joins us from Minnesota. Thad, are you still there?
I'm still in Minnesota, fellas. It's awesome to see you, John and Jeff. Great to see you guys.
It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
I thought I saw you during a spring training game at Surprise Stadium. I was unable to make it down to see you. You had disappeared before I could get there.
You did see me when I left the Minnesota Twins. My son is 15 years old. His name is Quinn. He'd become very in tune with going to baseball games, sitting in Rocco Baldelli's office, eating the clubhouse food and shagging fly balls. He was quite alarmed when I left the game. And so for his detox, we went to spring training. We ended up spending an awesome day in Surprise. We saw about 5 games in 4 days. It was wonderful. Chris Young hosted us up in the suite for a couple innings. Josh Boyd sat with us in the stands for a couple innings. It was wonderful. It was like a reunion.
Yeah, that's. I feel bad for Quinn. I mean, how sweet is that clubhouse food? I've never had any of the clubhouse food, by the way. I would, or been on the charter. John's at least been on the charter.
Yeah, I've been on the charter. Had some of that. Yeah.
Well, in Minnesota, we only had 3 chefs. He seemed to really like Bob. Bob could make a mean soup.
Oh, beautiful. Well, in Minnesota, you need soup. It's cold all the time.
Some hearty stews to keep the boys through the winter out here.
There you go.
So you are working on, ironically, a podcast now, Thad, called Rosters to Rings. And I said to Jeff when we were talking about it earlier, I said, and it's you and 2 other general managers. And I said, clearly the message is that general managers are responsible for all rings won, right? It's the rosters, and they go straight to the rings.
Yeah, you got it right there, John. The kind of the genesis of the name of the show was we were hopeful we could cover the seasons, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball. Maybe we'll branch out as we continue to grow. Really everything from opening day rosters to when championships rings are won and everything in between. And the impetus, and you guys work in the media and you do such an excellent job. My experience over my career is the higher I ascended, the less I was able to be candid with the media, with fans. And so, when we were speaking to people, we were sharing 30, 40, 50% of what we knew. And I wanted to take this opportunity to try to share the other 40 to 50% with fans. Like, how are these decisions made? What factors in? What are the relationships like with ownership and with the manager and with the other executives? And how do negotiations really go with agents and other clubs? And what does the draft look like? And I just thought, like, we get exposed to such exceptionally wonderful things throughout our careers, these amazing experiences, these really dynamic individuals, characters that make up our game. And why not share as many of those as I can with the fans? And then when I got the opportunity to partner with Ryan McDonough, who had a 5.5-year run as the Phoenix Suns GM, 10 years with the Celtics, now all of a sudden we could multiply. We could add the NBA stories to that. And then, we've just brought on an NFL guy in Tom Telesco, former general manager, San Diego Chargers, and ultimately the Las Vegas Raiders, and share some of those stories and some of the individuals who impact the NFL. It's just been so rewarding and fulfilling to see the reaction from the listeners. Some things that, the three of us got to kind of witness on a daily basis or a seasonal basis, is quite a refreshing thing for them to get exposed to. And so it's been a really rewarding thing, fundamentally, to give back, share some of those experiences and some of the wonderful people we've met along the way.
I had the thought, the football roster doesn't seem to change a lot. Maybe I'm wrong. A basketball roster, there's only 12 guys. Baseball, it's 26. I was just looking at the Rangers opening day roster, and the roster now looks nothing like opening day. And so it seems like, yeah, you have this opening day roster, but it can change like the next day. So that seems like the huge juggling act.
Yeah, and Jeff, as you guys know, I mean, you reported on the opening day roster. There was always, I think, so much put into that. And did you make the opening day roster? I think we never viewed it the same way players did. The players, it was so monumental to be on that opening day roster. What we used spring training to do is to come up with what was the next line of defense, what was the line of defense after that, and how much drop off was there between these lines of defenses, because we knew it was an inevitability we were going to have to tap in. And so now we're trying to shore up the second and third lines of defense, because you wanted to, ideally your manager is espousing this notion of, hey, the next man up. When we have injuries, it's the next man up. But you just didn't want to have this cataclysmic drop from player A to player B. So that was what we spent a lot of our time on, was coming up with those lines of defense that were viably going to be able to protect you in a playoff pursuit, because there's no team that's ever gone wire to wire with 25 or 26 players. You're going to need to tap into every bit of 40 to 50 players to make it through a major league season. And that's for the good teams. The teams that get decimated by injuries, and, looking at the Rangers roster before I jumped on with you guys, I mean, it's a who's who of all-stars on your guys' IL right now. I tallied it up. You've got $127 million worth of player salary on the IL. That's, just as a point of reference to your listener, that's close to the Milwaukee Brewers' entire payroll is on your IL right now. And all you're doing is making a sprint to the finish line with a chance to make the playoffs. So I'm quite certain when Chris Young was putting together this team, he wasn't contemplating an outcome where Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nate Eovaldi, John Gray, I'm missing a ton of guys here, I'm sure, that you guys could fill in. We're all going to be on the IL at the same time when, oh, by the way, you're also making a playoff push. That's a pretty remarkable feat.
Yeah. Well, then your guy, Michael Hellman, he's on the roster, killing it.
Yeah,
he wasn't even in the organization.
You've got your fingerprints on this thing, Thad. We appreciate that.
Michael Hellman's a wonderful person, and just such a tremendous story of the guy who wasn't necessarily touted as a tremendous prospect, but all he did was outperform a lot of the premium prospects at every level he played in. And he was the guy that when you talk to managers come season's end of like, okay, who are the guys that you have to have on the team? And he's like, well, they're always like, well, Michael is the type of guy. He plays all over the place. He has got great makeup. He builds the morale of the entire clubhouse. And if you're going wire to wire with a guy, you need people like that on your team. He's now getting a chance to showcase his ability at the major league level. It's wonderful to see.
Hey, so Thad, we had your buddy John Daniels on the show earlier this week, actually, and he told us he'd actually co-hosted with you, which I'm sure was fun for you guys to sort of walk down memory lane there. But he was talking about how when he first became the general manager, that whole adjustment to dealing with the media was big for him, and he admitted, what my initial thing was. Shut down, right? I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to get anything wrong. You were older. You were more experienced. You'd certainly had a front row seat to all that a GM was going through with the media. Did that part of it, plus, your personalities are different. So did that part of it bother you at all? Or when you got there to Minnesota, did you make a pretty seamless transition in that regard?
So John, I think that the game's evolved in so many ways. I think this is one area where maybe we've taken a step back. I look at when I started my career, the average GM was a Kevin Towers type or Omar Minaya or Jim Hendry. And for the listeners out there who don't know those guys, aside from being extremely talented and smart, they were super charismatic. These guys wore their emotions on their sleeves. If you sat down next to them at a ball game, regardless of what team you worked for, they would help you in your career development. They just were wired that way. They were in it for the betterment of the game, but they also had this incredible relationship with the media. They were notorious for, going to the local bar and having a glass of wine with the media and kind of cutting up the game, or, going to lunch with the guys and like asking their opinions. And they really wove the media into the fabric of what they did from an executive standpoint. Well, fast forward to today, I think there's really been this, amazing shift towards every piece of information is coveted, and it could be gold, and it could be the competitive advantage that you don't want to yield that could shift the seesaw kind of against you from a competitive standpoint. So the net effect of that is the average GM today is far less effusive with their commentary with the media. They're far less free with their conversation and their assessment of what's going on. That's where I felt I was most comfortable, John, was kind of modeling myself a little bit more after, dare I say, the Kevin Towers type, where I aspired to have relationships with guys and respect the fact that your jobs are so difficult. And also you're touching so many more fans than I ever could. So why not, provide you with some real information that you can peel back the curtain a little bit and give the fans something that they felt they weren't otherwise going to be able to get. And as a result, they become a little bit of a bigger fan. We're hoping to turn casual fans into fans and fans into fanatics. Well, it's tough to do that if we covet all the information. So my ease of operations was to be a little bit more fluent with the media, share a little bit more when the dynamic and the atmosphere became a little bit against that. And there was it was frowned upon when you were saying that. It made it more difficult for me then. But actually prior to that in my career, when I was actually far less experienced, I was able to be myself a little bit more with the media. Come the end of my time with Minnesota, it was a little bit more challenging because I was a little bit more guarded, and that wasn't where I felt my most natural.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. I always thought that you and John and Ross Fenstermaker now in his role, they're doing a good job of that. Ross will come down and just talk to you for 20 minutes, and you would do the same thing, and we could throw ideas off each other. And I don't know if it ever came to anything, but we enjoyed it, and that's part of the deal. It's like, hey, feel free to give me a text. And there are times I know when you guys can't text or respond, like during the trade deadline and the winter meetings when I hate you guys. But the rest of the time, we're there. You're there. There's no reason for us to not get along.
Well, and the bottom line is, I think there's this misconception that your guys' job is singularly to hold us to account, and that is part of your job. Like that is your responsibility. Like, we should be held accountable for our actions and should be criticized when appropriate. But also, like, there's a symbiotic nature of this relationship. Like, you can run a idea by me of like, hey, am I chasing the wrong thing? And I should be able to tell you, no, you aren't chasing the wrong thing, i.e. keep writing that, or yes, you are, so that you don't waste your time or your credibility with your fan base. So I think there's a way for there to be a really healthy symbiotic relationship between the media and front offices. I don't know how many front offices still approach it that way. That certainly would be the way I'd want to approach it.
Yeah, we're having a great conversation with Thad Levine. We're thrilled to have him on the program. Thad, lots of questions in our chat for you, so we're going to get to some of those and talk. Just pick your brain a little bit about what's happening more with the Rangers right now. That's all coming up. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. And we want you to become a diehard, and we want you to become a diehard today. All you have to do is scan the QR code that you'll see on the screen. There it is, right there. Or go to alldlls.com/join, and you can become a diehard for the low price of $79.99. There may be another sale coming, but I'd do it now because you're going to miss out on things like all the content that Jeff is throwing up behind the paywall right now. Clarence and Ali are all deep into Cowboys stuff, and now the Mavs and the Stars are getting ready to start too. So we've got so much great content there. We cover the major four sports in this market better than anybody else. We've got a beat writer on each one of those teams and 2 on the Cowboys. So we're right up there with everybody else. It's worth it. It's only $80, 20% off of our events and off of our merchandise, and you get a free shirt to join. So just become a diehard today.
Yeah, and you know what? While you're on here on the YouTube, you can join the supporters club.
Yeah, this one's really
which is not nearly as much as the diehard subscription. What you're in at 5 or 15? Those are the levels, right,
yeah,
John?
Yeah.
And if you sign up, you get those sweet emojis that you can use. Basically, the supporters club takes you beyond our show. It gives you exclusive content that you're only going to be able to find if you're one of our in the supporters club. John and I did something about covering the World Series teams in 10, 11, and 23, and how fun that was, and how chaotic a playoff run can be, and how much weight you can gain if you don't watch yourself at the bars and late night dinners. So anyway, let's do this now. Supporters club, throw a few bucks at us, and we will be your best friends forever, and shout you out and have a bunch of good stuff that you won't see anywhere else.
Yeah, that's great. Let's continue our conversation with Thad Levine. One of the top questions asked, Thad, do you want to return to baseball? Would you like to get back to being a general manager?
I appreciate the question very much. You know, it's funny. I was blessed to work for 25 years in baseball, and when I stepped away this past off season, I've been just so rewarded by being able to engage in a variety of things. Some baseball related, some outside of baseball, mostly sports adjacent. And I was waiting kind of for that moment in the season where I was going to get tugged back to baseball, and I made it through up until the draft. And when the draft came, I was like, oh man, I miss it so much to be in that room, to be part of these decisions for the future of a franchise, and to see the amateur scouts who just pour so much into those moments, and to have the camaraderie with those guys and the decision making in the draft room and the negotiations associated with that, and how hope springs eternal there. And then it segues right into the trading deadline. And I was hooked again. So up until that point, I was a little more open-minded to the prospect of life as a civilian. I got the bug again come the draft and the trading deadline, and I find myself now very attentive to what may be happening this offseason with regards to some movements in some front offices. So I guess time will tell, but consider me very, very open to the prospect of returning to baseball.
So you're updating your resume. You've added podcast hosts. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get to talk ball, you get to learn things and learn about other sports. What about another sport? Do you think what you've learned in baseball could help you with, basketball, hockey, or the NFL?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound ostentatious and to assume that I could just jump into those roles, but I will say this, Jeff. My observation is that as the game evolved, like the first 4 to 5 years of my 25-year career, I think I was learning very specific baseball-related skills. I think for like the next 18 to 20, I was learning a lot of leadership skills and about crisis management and executive decision-making and talent acquisition and development and culture creation and championship expectations. And I do think those things really translate across a lot of industries. I think it would translate to other sports. I think it also could translate to corporate America. Now, I would tell you, we've been so blessed, all of us, to do the jobs we love for a product we also are super passionate about in baseball. That would be where I'd want to start the conversation. but I'm wide open to considering things outside of baseball, provided that I had a chance to apply some of the leadership lessons I've learned in my life.
You'd have to learn about salary caps, Thad.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Who knows? That may be part of the baseball, landscape here in the future. But I think all of us who've worked in front offices in baseball have often wondered what would it be like if we could trade draft picks and if we had salary caps to navigate, as adding wrinkles to trades that we're already making. And I think by and large, most of us are pretty enamored with the prospect of dabbling in that space.
I would love to see draft picks be able to be traded. I think that's
a good one.
That would be huge. To be able to get a first round pick with the way some teams covet amateur talent, you could do some damage with that to help the big league club.
Yeah, I think fundamentally as a front office executive, you should always be trying to win today by adding to your major league talent, or you should try to be building for tomorrow by building up your farm system. If you were able to trade draft picks, it just gives you such a different avenue to engage teams. Now it's so much more difficult to make trades because it's not so clear who the buyers and sellers are. Well, if you introduce draft picks into it, I think you could really spark a lot more trades and give teams a real chance to propel their future progress rather than having to build just individually through the draft picks you already have.
Yeah.
Thad, I don't want to give away too much of what Jeff and I put on our new supporters club video, but when we were talking about the 10 and 11 World Series runs, and we were talking about the ups and downs, my first comment about 10 was, in the World Series, I don't remember downs, right? It was such an accomplishment to get there and to beat the Yankees and to strike out, A-Rod in the last out of that American League Championship Series, that the World Series almost seemed like getting there almost seemed like the accomplishment. Now, you were in a completely different seat than me. Am I off base? Did it feel that way at all within the organization?
John, I think you nailed it. And I think that maybe in hindsight, one of the reasons we didn't prevail. There was a sense of we were playing with house money when we got to the World Series. You guys lived it, so I don't want to minimize this, but when I joined the Rangers, much was made of the fact that they'd only ever been to the playoffs 3 times. The Yankees had dismissed them each of those 3 times. They'd only won 1 game. They had not won a home game. And I think until we went to the playoffs in 2010, we didn't really understand the true magnitude of those things. So to your point, we go and we beat Tampa. And if memory serves, I think all 5 games were won on the road. So we win a series, but we don't actually still get to win a home game until we play the Yankees. And we have that crushing first game loss where we kind of gave it up late. But then we ended up winning that series. And when we did, and when we won that home game, when we beat the Yankees, there was a uniform sentiment throughout the Metroplex that we had just won our version of the Super Bowl, right? And so then we ultimately still had a series left. It was called the World Series. But there was this sense that we were somewhere between invincible and playing with house money. And I'm not saying that the guys ever let up. I don't feel that way. But John, I felt what you shared. Like, we would have all loved to have won that World Series, but the sense of euphoria really wasn't curbed by not winning the World Series. There still was such a huge sense of accomplishment and an awareness that we were doing something for a fan base that they had never experienced on so many levels. And we were making memories and really, shirking a lot of the ghosts that had haunted this franchise for so long. I wish we had won one of those World Series without question. But, it was like, I think it was 5 or 6 years after we lost the second one that I said to Michael Young, hey, I want to tell you, I am so proud of what you guys and what we collectively accomplished. And he kind of said, well, thank God you said it, because it felt like we were always kind of listed as the first loser in those 2 World Series, because that's unfortunately the way sports are. Like the team that doesn't win it all is the first one to lose. And so I think there is a sense of pride we all have from those 2 runs. Certainly we wish we had won a World Series. I'm so happy that the franchise did in 2023. So long overdue for that fan base. But I do think there was a great sense of pride and accomplishment associated with those teams in the early 2010s.
And when the Rangers won in 23, maybe you felt this, but the players who were on those 10 and 11 teams were so happy for the organization that they had won the World Series. And, from Michael to Ian to Elvis, all those guys were thrilled for the organization. And I think that, maybe they felt some weight off of them for the way that 11 ended. I don't know what it was, but there was a sense of happiness and maybe relief.
Yeah,
Did you
and
feel something like that?
maybe a little closure. I
Yeah.
think we all wish we were essentially part of that, but I think we all still felt like we were peripherally part of that, as like part of the legacy that has been the last 15 years of
Right.
the Texas Rangers franchise is so interwoven. And I think that franchise does as good a job as any keeping those guys connected. Watching some of those playoff games, which I was watching with bated breath because I found myself still, Rangers fan every bit of that postseason. It was great to see all those veterans that you referenced, Jeff, a lot of whom were at some of those games and were being hosted by the Rangers and were woven into the fabric of those teams and those wins because they were legacy guys. Like, these were the guys who really vaulted the franchise forward. They deserve to be there and participate in this. And I really give the Rangers and Ray Davis and ownership so much credit, and Chris Young, for incorporating those guys in every step of the way.
So when that topic brings us to this year, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, that and the fact that this Rangers team has inserted themselves, or in this case, reinserted themselves back into this playoff picture with an unlikely bunch of guys, with all those high priced fellas on the injured list right now, and I don't think that's foreign to what you've seen and what you led Twins teams to, right? I mean, they're not necessarily the biggest stars in the world, the biggest money players in the world, and yet they just go out there and get it done. And it's really refreshing to watch what's happening here in Texas right now.
I think that's the heartbeat of a championship organization, is when guys come up and they just perform at a level you never thought they could achieve based upon the standards of excellence that are in the clubhouse, but also the freedom that guys like Bruce Bochy give a guy to be the best version of themselves. There's no pressure to do more than what is required. I was looking at your guys' performance. One of the things that I'm sure has been a head scratcher for Texas Rangers fans over the last 2 years is, on paper, they look like they should be an excellent offensive club, and somehow it just hasn't manifested itself that way. Well, I looked at it since since July 1st. They're the 7th best offense in the game, during which time you've had a lot of like superstar players on the IL. And so it has been a lot of these kind of, dare I say, unsung heroes, that next line of defense that we had talked about earlier, who are coming up and really giving this team such a much needed shot in the arm. The pitching has been excellent. It actually has faltered a little bit recently, but it's still ranked in the top 5 or 6 in the major leagues. And if they can overcome Eovaldi being on the IL, it seems as if he was tracking to be very much in that Cy Young conversation. And what a competitor in the postseason. We all say those games are the same. They're not the same. Like when you see a guy like Nathan Eovaldi like take it to the next level and do it every time he gets a chance to compete in the postseason, those guys are worth their weight in gold. And it's really unfortunate for the Rangers fans that he may not be able to participate for the rest of the year. But when you have guys come up who are your second tier guys, perform like they're performing, and have the chance to maybe reinstate guys like Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia and Corey Seager back into this lineup, you have a chance to really do some damage. And I'm quite certain everyone in the American League, certainly everyone in the American League West, is taking great notice of the Texas Rangers right now. They want no part of competing with this team late. You guys have the 4th best run differential in the American League.
Yeah.
And that's for a reason. You're one of the best teams in the American League. You just don't have the record that reflects it today. I would be keeping a very close eye on this team, because come season's end, that may correct itself, and you guys may find yourself in the playoffs, and nobody's going to want to match up with you in the first round.
So if that, we talked about these young guys, and you've experienced it and seen it. Why does a veteran team need a shot of energy? What in the course of the year can cause things to stagnate?
Well, I think there's some energy around like the 162, and we gotta pace ourselves for the 162, and that veteran who knows he's going to be on the team for the whole year has a little bit of that mindset. Whereas there's a little bit of the mindset of like, hey, if I'm not feeling 100% right, maybe I tell Bochy and he gives me a day off, and I fight. I live to fight tomorrow. Well, that young kid who comes up and who has no idea how long he's going to be up, he is sprinting from the word go. There is wind at his sails. There's no parachute behind him. He is dead sprinting. He is trying to prove every single day that he belongs up there, and he is trying to make an impact every single day. So I think the sense of urgency that player has sometimes supersedes what the veteran has. I think secondarily, there is some magic to not knowing that they should be nervous about being up there and that they're in a playoff race. I will say when we went to the playoffs a couple years ago, I thought it was pretty palpable. Talking to Sonny Gray was clearly aware of the magnitude of being in the playoffs, and also that he knew that he wasn't entitled to be in the playoffs in perpetuity for the rest of his career, and maybe this was his last run, and he was taking it quite seriously. In contrast, we had a number of guys who had literally just come up in August, who had gotten hot and were going to be part of a playoff run. They thought this was every year, and they didn't know better that you should really appreciate this. And they were playing with their hair on fire, carefree as the day is long. And there is some element of, you want people to appreciate the magnitude of these games, but maybe not fully embrace them, because when you can play, the team that's playing a little bit more free and easy and a little bit more confident tends to prevail in these games because the talent is that close.
Yeah. Well, and who you just described in a way, Thad, is Elvis Andrus, who, 2 of his first 3 years in the majors, the team goes to the World Series, and he was kind of that same way. Oh, geez, yeah, we just do this every year. Whereas some of those veterans, Michael Young, Adrian Beltre, when he joined, they're like, man, we got to savor this. But I think Elvis almost played, and part of it's personality, but Elvis almost played his entire career that way.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right, John, because then when you're building championship teams, you are aware, like, so where does Elvis go from there? How does he maintain that level of intensity when he is used to going to the World Series? And we know, maybe he doesn't know, but we know this isn't going to happen every year. I mean, hell, I remember distinctly for John Daniels and I, Ray Davis bought the team, as you guys remember, in 2010 midseason. So his first 2 years, he goes to the World Series. And so we knew that could also be a real challenge to manage, because that wasn't going to be a reality of our future. Now, it just so happened from 2012 to 2016, I think they effectively played beyond 162 3 or 4 more times. And so Ray got to experience that. But as you guys know, between the time we went to the World Series in 2011 and when they went back in 2023, we didn't win a whole lot of playoff series. We went to the playoffs, but we didn't prevail in the playoffs quite a bit. And, so not only were there guys like Elvis Andrus who were used to that, but so too was the owner. And it's not that he applied any undue pressure to us, but the first time we didn't make it to the World Series, there was kind of a meeting like, hey, guys, what the hell's going on? I thought we went to the World Series every year. Well, as much as we would love to do that, that's, there are 29 other clubs who are fighting for those spots as well.
Yeah, that's like Cal Ripken won a World Series as a rookie, never went back.
Yeah.
You cannot just assume it's going to happen. It's so hard. Because
wasn't Nolan that way as well? Didn't Nolan go?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Well, he debuted in 67, right?
Yeah.
But 69. He was 69. Still a rookie technically.
Yeah.
Never went back. Yeah. No. That's so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are guys in the Hall of Fame, as we all know, who never went at all. And as we're sitting here witnessing one of the best careers of our lifetimes in Mike Trout, and he's never gotten out of the first round of the playoffs, and I think maybe only gone to the first round one time.
One time, and he got one hit.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Well, Thad, we are so thrilled to have had an opportunity to catch up. Keep going with the rosters and rings, but we'll be rooting, rosters 2 rings, that is, but we'll be rooting for you to, find another job in baseball. Maybe you can come back here and help out.
Guys, it was awesome being on. I loved my time in Texas. It was 11 exceptional years for me and my family. So many fond memories. The fans were awesome. So I appreciate you guys so much. Great being on your show. You guys are doing a great job.
Hey, Thad, where can we find your show? Let everybody know.
So it's on Apple, Spotify, Google, anywhere you're getting your podcast. It's called Rosters to Rings. Please check us out. We've had a few episodes, as John mentioned, with John Daniels on. Michael Young has been on. We'll have many more Texas Rangers people on the horizon, but I think the Michael Young episode with John Daniels was certainly one of my favorites and one of the ones that the listeners seem to really, really enjoy. So please come on and listen. Give us some feedback. Ask us some questions. We'd love to cover any topics you guys would like to hear more about.
Awesome.
That's just great. Thad, great seeing you. We'll hope to catch up again real soon.
Look forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Thad. Thanks, man.
Thad Levine. What a great dude and what a great fun guy we had to cover and to work with back in those 11 years while he was here in Texas. More coming up as we we wrap things up with our sort of our normal cleanup segment, but we're cleaning up some playoff doubts next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. And there is also no doubt that you should be getting your merchandise soon. Although I suppose you might want to wait until the hats come out. But what the heck? Get the shirts now and then go back and get the hats. There's the new Dallas collection of shirts, and they're fantastic. I've got 2 of those 3. I like the Rangers flag one that I'm wearing today. Just got the Hello Win column shirt on today. We got a bunch of great ones, and we encourage you to do it too. As we said, John Daniels on the show earlier this week was a big advocate, a proponent for these shirts because he said, I remember him just saying, they're so soft. Yeah. And they are. They're good. They're good shirts. It's good quality content. And like we've said, we saw the mock-up of a Phoenix and a Dallas hat, PHNX and DLLS. I think the Dallas one was blue, navy blue
with gray letter. It looks so good.
And the letters just pop.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So anyway, and they're in conjunction with our buddies and our other partner from Branded Bills. So we really want you to get the hats. They're not quite available yet. Will be soon. But also in the meantime, go to store.allcitynetwork.com and get the shirts, the mugs, the steins, the flags, and everything else we have.
I got to tell you, John, I hope there's more than one hat.
Yeah, I think there will be.
Because I need at least 5.
Okay. One a day.
I think I need one for every day we do a show. One, yeah. And I'm looking at the website right now, and we have all the new shirts. We're constantly updating our catalog.
It's amazing, yeah.
They're always asking us for ideas, coming up with their own ideas. The Dallas collection is so sharp, and if you're a Cowboys fan, there are new Cowboys shirts. And if you're a Cowboys fan, I don't hold it against you. So I've been over to the DNVR. I have a Broncos shirt, that I got, and their Nugget shirts are sharp too. So anyway, store.allcitynetwork.com.
Awesome. So let's get into the cleanup segment. As I saw somebody in the chat way earlier before Thad was on saying, it's too bad the Rangers just swept the Brewers and they didn't gain any ground on the Mariners. And that is, the Mariners, did they sweep or do they have a game 4 against St. Louis?
No, they swept St. Louis.
Yeah, they swept.
They're now playing the Angels of Anaheim.
Okay, so they start it must be a 4-game series. Yeah, with Anaheim. So they swept St. Louis. They won last night. The Astros also won last night. And so, when we left the air after the post-game show yesterday, the Rangers were only 2 games back in the standings of the Astros and only, one game behind the Mariners. And then, they both won. So there you go.
That's all right. That's baseball. Yeah.
It's all good. But they both play tonight. So theoretically, if they both lose tonight, the Rangers could pick up a half game again and be right back to where they were as play begins on Friday when everybody gets going. The Rangers will get going in New York. So there's your West standings, and so the wild card has changed only a little bit. Boston lost yesterday. The Yankees remain pretty hot, but they lost actually to the Tigers yesterday. They got beat up. And then, there's the Mariners we've already talked about. So Texas, the next man up, if you will, only a game and a half back in the standings. And we've been talking a lot about the possibility of the Rangers leapfrogging the Rangers and the Mariners both leapfrogging the Astros.
Correct.
And it seems possible. The Astros, despite the win last night, haven't been playing great lately. The Mariners have been playing much better than the Astros. And neither team has been playing nearly as well as the Rangers, at least not of late. But looking at it today and doing a little deeper dive into all the ways that the tiebreakers work, here is the way it would be best for it to work for the Rangers.
Okay, let's go, right? John.
Here's what we need. We need a 3-way tie at the top of the American League. Yeah, just like that. Just follow me here. You see, follow 3-way tie. No, we need a 3-way tie at the top of the American League West. If there's a 3-way tie, then the first tiebreaker, Jeff, is intra-division record. And I'm not going to lie. I had to look it up. Is intra or inter the one we like? Intra is within, right?
Hey,
Hang
John,
on,
your
my
phone's
phone's ringing. That's
All
spam.
right.
Intra is within. So within the division right now, the Rangers and Mariners have pretty much both buried the Astros. The Astros have 19 wins within the division, and they have 12 division games left this season. So they're going to have significant. They're not. I mean, they're going to have a chance to win some more,
Right.
but they're going to have a chance to lose a lot more too. Right?
Yeah.
The Astros, the Rangers, and the Mariners each have 27 for the Mariners, 25 for the Rangers. So, and the Rangers have 3. Yeah. So I don't. Is it good or bad? I think it's good because the trend says the Astros aren't that great against the division. So the division will continue to beat up on the Astros. Mariners have 6 games left, and the Rangers only have 3. And the Mariners are against, of course, the Rangers against the Astros too. Mariners are against the Astros, and then some must be 7 games.
Yeah.
Because they have these 4 with the Angels too.
Yeah, hang on. Let's take a look at the standings, John. I might be misleading the whole world here. No, they play tonight. So anyway, the games against the Astros that the Rangers have and the Mariners have are potentially the games of the season when it comes to determining who makes the playoffs out of the and if even a third or the second place team in the division makes it. Rangers have played well against the Astros this year, really, really well.
Even down there,
and so I just think that if they have to win 2 out of 3 to have the tiebreaker, and if they do that, we all know they move a little bit closer. I just think that the Astros are reeling. I know they won last night. They don't have their closer, which is a big deal. Luis Garcia just went back on the injured list. They were counting on him. They have Christian Javier. They're about to play the Blue Jays here at the top of the hour, and Toronto's tough up there in Canada. This is no sure thing here for the Astros. In fact, and I know the odds that came out today, I think have the Mariners with the better chance of making the postseason than the Astros. And like 83%, the Rangers at 25%. The Rangers have improved their playoff odds by 3 times here in just the last week or so. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen. After this weekend, after today's game against the Blue Jays, when they get head to head, that can really affect these playoff odds.
Yeah.
If the Rangers have a good series there, I'm telling you, man, I really think I think the Astros not making the playoffs at all is entirely feasible.
A distinct possibility.
Yeah.
It really is. You look at that, what Leon just put in there, the Rangers in the last 18, 14-4. Red Sox have 19, but they're 12-7. The Yankees 11-7 in their last 18. And then, of course, Mariners 10-8 and Astros 9-9. So, I mean, again, 14-4, you can't expect them to go.
No.
There's not even 18 left, but what is it, 12, 15 left? 15 left. You can't expect them to go even 11-4 in the last 15. It'd be great if they did.
Yeah, if 10-5.
Yeah,
that feels
10-5
pretty
gets them
good.
to 87 wins.
Yeah, and James Jolly with a not so jolly comment: the hottest team, but not gaining any ground. That's why you don't get behind by 11 games. You're 100% correct.
Yeah,
the Rangers are reliant on help.
Yep,
they put themselves in this position. They have nobody to blame but themselves for being where they are and needing the Blue Jays to beat the Astros today and the Braves to beat the Astros this weekend and the Angels to at least split the 4-game series with the Mariners. You're right. And I think the Rangers know that. And Jake Berger said yesterday, we're playing great now. It stinks that we weren't able to get going sooner. And so they realize the hole they've dug themselves, but they also believe in what's happening, and you're seeing a guy like Jake Berger, I think, who's not old.
No.
Feeding off of the guy who's, 2 lockers down from him and Cody Freeman. And the guy,
3 lockers down is Michael Hellman.
And the guy who's right next to him is Dustin Harris, who won the game the other night. So What happens? Jake Berger hits 4 home runs in this last series, or this last homestand. I mean, it's like I said, there's a chance, but it starts with Jacob deGrom Friday night back at his old stomping grounds, and hey, a good outing there. Start with the road trip with a win. See what happens.
Jacob deGrom back where it all began on Friday night. We are back on Sunday as we wrap up that series with the Mets. Hopefully, we'll be talking about really good baseball. And then on Monday, we'll be here too. But actually, I'll be here. Jeff will be in Houston. He's headed to Houston for the 3-game series against the Astros. He'll be there for that entire series. We'll be with you each and every day during that series. We'll be thrilled to be with you to wrap up the Mets series. That's coming up on Sunday, probably around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you Sunday on another edition of the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.